Okay. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to participate today. Although my presentation focuses on economic models in the United States, I think the findings can help to illustrate key issues regarding cost effectiveness of adult vaccination in high income settings in general. Next slide. So why do we need to estimate the cost effectiveness of mid-adult vaccination in the United States? The HPV vaccines were originally licensed through age 26 years in the US, and in April of 2018, Merck submitted a supplemental application to the FDA to expand the age indication for non-valent HPV vaccines through age 45 years. And FDA approved this application in October of last year. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, reviews data and makes policy for the U.S., and they needed cost-effectiveness analyses to help inform the recommendations regarding mid-adult vaccination. Slide 3, please. So the new cost-effectiveness question that we had to answer what is the cost-effectiveness of mid-adult vaccination? That is specifically, what is the cost-effectiveness of extending the upper recommended catch-up age of HPV vaccination to 45 years for males and females? Slide 4. So what I plan to do today is to provide a brief overview of the 5 available models of mid-adult vaccination and to present results from these models that were used by ACIP to inform their policy decisions. And I'll also go over some of the reasons for the differences in the model results. Next. This slide lists the 5 models that were available to us to inform adult HPV vaccination policy decisions. The HPV advised model by Dr. Bresson's group was adapted from the original Canadian model to fit US data. And in addition, we had 2 models from the CISNET cervical cancer modeling group. Slide 6. There are many key similarities across the HPV vaccination models. For example, all 5 models include a wide range of health outcomes that can be prevented by HPV vaccination. All models are dynamic and account for herd effects or indirect effects, and thus the models can account for herd effects from the existing vaccination program on mid-adults. And all models examine a very long time horizon. Slide 7. But there are key differences across the models as well. The models differ in structure and in how they were calibrated to fit the available data. The assumptions vary regarding cervical cancer screening, vaccine uptake, and natural history parameters such as natural immunity after HPV acquisition and clearance. The models differ in how HPV transmission is characterized, such as in factors such as the rate of acquisition of new sex partners by age, and also in cost and quality of life assumptions. And we could spend hours going over these differences, but what I will do is just go over the differences in structure and calibration very quickly. Okay, this table provides examples of how the models differ in structure and calibration. In terms of model calibration, a key distinction of the HPV advised model is that it uses the 50 best fitting parameter sets. And this distinction is very important because the HPV advised model showed that there is a range of plausible parameter sets that can fit the available data. And as I will show later, the cost effectiveness results can vary substantially across these 50 plausible parameter sets. Slide 9. So the health economic comparisons that were used to inform the policy considerations are shown here. Vaccination of adults older than age 26 years. To look at this, we examined vaccination through age 30 years versus the current program and vaccination through age 45 years versus the current program. And what I'm referring to as the current program is the program that was in effect in June at the time the adult vaccination strategies were considered. And it was generally modeled across the 5 models as routine vaccination at ages 11 and 12 for both sexes, and catch-up vaccination through age 26 years for females and age 21 years for males. And these strategies are listed at the bottom of the slide. Slide 10.
Harrell, I think you're muted again.
Okay, somehow I got muted again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
Exactly, the slide
Okay,
number
so
10. Yeah, please.
Okay, so the point of slide number 10 was just to show that all of the models had a very favorable cost effectiveness ratio for the current HPV vaccination program. So I just wanted to show that result before moving on to the mid-adult vaccination results. So slide 11. So this table shows estimates from the HPV advised model of the number needed to vaccinate to prevent one case of disease. For the current program, as shown in the top row of results, one case of genital warts is prevented for every 9 people vaccinated, one case of SIN2-3 is prevented for every 22 people vaccinated, and one case of HPV cancer is prevented for every 202 people vaccinated. The next 3 rows of results show the number needed to vaccinate for the strategy of expanding vaccination through age 45 years. When taking the mean value across all 50 parameter sets in the HPV advised model, these results were 390, 860, and 7690, respectively. And this is about 40 times higher than the results shown for the current program in the top row. And the estimated number needed to vaccinate is lower when the analysis was limited to the parameter sets with faster progression from infection to disease and lower natural immunity. Slide 12. These results are also from HPV advised, and they show the estimated impact.
We had advanced accidentally here to the slide 12. Can you repeat the second half of slide 11?
Okay, for the second half of slide 11, what I was the bottom 3 rows show the results the number needed to vaccinate for the strategy of expanding vaccination through age 45 years. So when taking the mean value in the HPV 50 parameter sets in the HPV advised model, the results were 390, 860, and 7690. And note that these are about 40 times higher than the results for the current program on the top row. And the number needed to vaccinate is lower when the analysis was limited to the parameter sets with faster progression from infection to disease and a lower degree of natural immunity. Okay, we'll move on to slide 12 now. And again, this is results from HPV advised model showing the impact of HPV vaccination on the incidence of CIN, cervical cancer, anogenital warts, and other HPV cancers. The estimated impact is shown by the blue line for the current program and by the red line for extending the current program to include adults up to age 45 years. And you can see it's hard to tell a difference between the red line and the blue line because the incremental benefits of the mid-adult vaccination program are small relative to the benefits of the current program. For example, as shown in the top right corner, the current program is expected to prevent about 650 cervical cancer cases over 100 years, whereas adding adults up to age 45 years to the program is expected to prevent an additional 3,000 cases over 100 years. Next slide. So slide 13 shows cost effectiveness results across 3 models. The first row of results shows the estimated cost per quality gained by expanding the current program to include adults up to age 30 years. And the second row shows the estimated cost per quality gained by expanding the current program to include adults up to age 45 years. And as you can see, there are notable differences in these results across the models. Slide 14. As a reminder, the results shown for HPV advised reflect the median across the 50 parameter sets when limiting the analyses to the 22 parameter sets with faster progression and lower natural immunity. Lower costs per quality were obtained as shown here. Next slide. And conversely, the estimates were much higher when using the 28 parameter sets with slower progression from infection to disease and higher natural immunity, as shown by the $2.3 million estimate and $1.6 million estimate here. Next slide. So we've identified several factors that can account for the differences in the model results. There's uncertainties about HPV natural history, particularly natural immunity following clearance of infections, and the burden of disease caused by new HPV infections acquired after age 26 years. There's also the degree of herd protection from the existing HPV vaccination program, cervical cancer screening assumptions, health economic assumptions, and deaths from undiagnosed cancer. So what I'll do is give a quick example of each one of these, starting on slide 17. The impact of the natural history assumptions was illustrated by the wide range of results I showed on the previous slides for HPV advised when the parameter sets are grouped by progression and natural immunity assumptions. So that just showed how these the assumptions for these factors can have a really big impact on the estimated cost effectiveness of adult vaccination. Slide 18. We also know that vaccination of adults older than age 26 years is more cost effective when assuming lower or no historical vaccination coverage, because there would be fewer benefits of herd protection to mid-adults from the existing program for adolescents and younger adults. And I'll show this in slide 19. This table shows the effect of assuming no historical vaccination coverage for the HPV advised model and the simplified model. The cost per quality when assuming no historical coverage is shown in red and is notably lower in both models. So the way to interpret these results is as follows. The $399,000 estimate for the HPV advised model shows the estimated cost per quality of including mid-adults in the vaccination program if you were to start the program today. However, what the $830,000 estimate shows is the cost per quality of adding mid-adults to an existing decade-old HPV vaccination program for adolescents and young adults, as was the case for the U.S. at the time the adult vaccination recommendations were considered. Slide 20. The cervical cancer screening assumptions also can make a difference. Both of the CISNET models assumed perfect compliance to cervical cancer screening guidelines in the base case analysis, and the vaccination of adults older than age 26 is more cost effective when assuming real-world screening than when assuming perfect compliance, because there is more potential for the vaccine to benefit in terms of preventing cervical cancer in unscreened or underscreened women. And this is shown on slide 21, where this table shows the effect of the cervical cancer screening assumptions. The base case results in the top row are the same as presented earlier and were obtained when assuming perfect compliance to screening recommendations. And the bottom row shows the results when assuming imperfect real-world screening coverage and frequency. And as you can see, these are a good deal lower. Slide 22. The ACIP reviewers asked the modelers to include a set of results when using a standardized list of health economic parameters, specifically for the medical treatment cost and the quality of life assumptions. And the next slide shows these results. The base case results in the top row are as shown earlier, and what the bottom row shows is the results from each model when applying the standardized set of parameters. And as you can see, the standardized set of parameters did not have much impact in terms of the absolute differences across the models. However, there was a difference in the Merck model, relatively speaking, because the new cost per quality was about 50% higher than before. Slide 24. And then one other issue that we identified as a potential reason for the differences across the models is deaths due to undiagnosed cancer, and I'll explain this briefly on slide 25. In the Merck model, there are almost 10,000 deaths each year due to diagnosed HPV cancer in the absence of vaccination. And this is similar across all models. However, one difference in the Merck model was that there's a lot of deaths due to undiagnosed HPV cancer each year. So it works out to about 71% of the cancer deaths in their model are due to undiagnosed cancer. And as you can see in the table at the bottom, this number is a good deal different than what was in the other models. And slide 26 shows the impact of these assumptions. The base case result on the top row is the same as presented earlier. When excluding deaths due to the undiagnosed cancer, the cost per quality increases to just over $200,000. And when excluding deaths due to undiagnosed cancer and applying the standardized health economic parameters, the cost per quality is over $400,000. So these undiagnosed cancer deaths can have an impact on the results. However, this doesn't account for all of the differences across the models. Slide 27. So now I'll summarize the health economic results and the cost effectiveness results. So the cost per quality gained by the current vaccination program is quite low in all of the models, but all of the models show that adult vaccination is relatively much less cost effective than the current program. But there are notable differences across the models in these estimates. The uncertainties in HPV natural history and transmission dynamics preclude a precise estimate of the cost effectiveness of the vaccination of adults, and the results are more consistent when standardizing the health economic assumptions and assumptions regarding deaths due to undiagnosed cancer. Compared to the existing program, vaccinating adults over age 26 years reduced relatively small additional health benefits. And as shown in the HPV advised model, the number needed to vaccinate to prevent one case of disease is roughly 40 times higher for adults than for the current program. Slide 28. And then just to summarize the cost effectiveness estimates. For vaccination of adults through age 30 years, the cost per quality gain was over $300,000 in 4 of the 5 available models and exceeded $800,000 in the median of the 50 parameter sets in HPV advised. And the results through age 45 years were similar in that most of the models showed a high cost per quality exceeding $400,000 with a median of $1.4 million in the HPV advised model. And on the final slide, 29, I just listed the modeling team members, and I want to thank them and thank you as well.